Hi, welcome to Off Script. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Today on the show, the 2025 final Oscar noms, baby. They're happening this weekend. We're going to watch them. We're going to follow up next week. But this week, we're going to tell you who's going to win because we're never wrong. We get this right every year. We've been doing it for years. We're also going to take a look at Apple TV's The Gorge. We watched this movie. It's an odd one, man. It's an odd feature, and I'm actually really looking forward to digging into it here on the show. No spoilers, of course. We're also going to take a look at Flow, which was on HBO. Flow's rad, man. Nominated for Best Animated Feature this year, alongside the likes of DreamWorks, Disney, Pixar. Is this scrappy indie going to hold up? Stick around for the review. We'll talk about the noms. We'll talk about the news. First things first, what did we watch this week? And I'm going to be honest, guys, it was a dry week. We have not watched a whole lot in the way of movies. I think we watched a little bit of TV, but otherwise it's been pretty chill, right, Andy?
Yeah, it's been a little, some weeks it's heavy, like the week that I watched all 5 Final Destination films and then some, sometimes I don't watch anything extra. So this is one of those weeks.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I also have not watched a whole lot, but good news, we got a lot of news to talk about. In our first story this week, bit of a shocker out of Amazon. Apparently, Amazon has just acquired full control of James Bond, which sounds a little wild if you're not up on the news, but hear us out. You might remember not long ago, Amazon acquired control of Bond, pretty much everything but creatively. The original family, Barbara Broccoli, she kind of hung on to the creative rights of Bond, and since the last movie, the series has kind of just been locked up and hasn't really gone anywhere. But now, Barbara Broccoli seems to be stepping back, and suddenly Amazon is just cleared the runway to make whatever they want. Podcasts, TV shows, movies. I mean, Bond is coming, whether you like it or not. What do you know about this, Andy?
So the Broccoli family has held on to the creative rights of James Bond, so kind of since the beginning, since the 60s. Barbara Broccoli actually inherited this from her father. And so it's a huge thing, and they've been incredibly protective of the brand. Like, they don't want to do TV shows or games or anything like that. And they were kind of just sitting on the property. They weren't letting Amazon greenlight anything after No Time to Die from 2021. That was, of course, Daniel Craig's last outing as 007. And we were kind of on the hunt for a new Bond, but they will not greenlight anything until they greenlight a script, and they were not allowing any of that. But some wheeling and dealing behind the scenes has gone on, and which is a nice way of saying that they probably got a really big check. And now Amazon is clear to start making shows or podcasts or games or any other kind of James Bond supplemental properties, which I think is really cool. I'm kind of excited about that.
Yeah, Barbara Broccoli is in her 60s now. Like, totally seems like a reasonable place to step out of the family business. She's been doing it her whole life. Amazon bought MGM for 8.5 billion in 2022, and Andy and I were talking about this just a few weeks ago here on the show. Why have they not been able to get a Bond project off the ground? Like, what's the problem? Who is the linchpin? And it seems like it was Broccoli. She was just saying, nope, this isn't good enough. Nope, I don't like this. Nope, this doesn't work. And it's tough, man, because when you dig into it, like, I know Ian Fleming wrote a lot of Bond novels, but they have pretty much scraped everything out of those books, man. Like, they've made 25 movies now. They have exhausted the supply. There is no big secret supervillain. They don't have a whole lot of like really big new idea. Like, they've used a lot of it. And like, just the recent Bond, like Craig films were reusing a lot of old elements like Spectre and Blofeld. Like, now they need to find a young kid, probably in their 30s, who's got to walk this like perfect line between like dapper and a gentleman, but also like a fire starter, somebody who really chases after what they want and passionate. Like, and I know Amazon obviously has the war chest to do this, but like I don't know if I got the confidence in them creatively. Like, they for all of their good hits, like they've sure made some misses. You know what I mean? I think of like Reacher, which is fine, or like The Wheel of Time, which is like kind of turning out to be a bust. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't have a lot of confidence in Amazon for 007 here.
I'm a little bit more positive. I think the industry as a whole has seen the missteps that Disney has made. And, Disney was trying to crank out too many movies too soon and shows, and they really watered down both the Star Wars and Marvel brand. And they've learned from that, and they're backpedaling some. And I think the rest of the industry has learned that too, is like, you can overdo a good thing. I'm a fan of some Amazon shows. I really enjoyed the Fallout show that came out last year. I've heard Rings of Power is really good. So there's definitely potential. I think as long as they don't overdo it. Like, I would definitely watch like an 8-10 episode Bond show. Definitely go into any movies they do, and then who knows how else they'll branch out. But I mean, you buy property to be able to capitalize on it.
Yeah, and you're right. Like, there are some better victories than me talking about the stuff that I wasn't personally into. Like, clearly they've got some success. And you're right. Like, there could be a Bond podcast, right? Like, you can do a Bond TV show, young Bond, old Bond, dad Bond, Kingsman Bond. You can go wherever you want. World War II 007. Like, you can go any direction here. Like, you can build a whole John Wick verse out of like what's potential with Bond here. So we'll see. Like, it feels a little bit like somebody's like yanked the rug out from under anybody who was like really sticking on old Bond. But at the same time, like, dude, it's got to move somewhere. It's stuck. Like, the whole series is in hibernation, right? They're on lockdown. It's like, so moves are going to happen. And that's a good thing ultimately for everybody. So here's to more Bond, man. I can't wait to see who they pick. It's going to be somebody. Have to be somebody good, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Our next story this week, big change up in leadership at Star Wars, which is nuts. Kathleen Kennedy, Lucasfilm boss, is expected to retire this year. This was a weird story because this wasn't a big formal announcement from Disney. They didn't like do D23 and have her come out on stage and like run a presentation where they're like, oh man, over the years, her storied history working with Lucasfilm all the way back from like Raiders in 81 to Star Wars in 25. None of that. This like dropped overnight. And then Hollywood Reporter picked up and ran with it. It's not exactly like a groundbreaking story. She's been in the business for years, but it's a shakeup. It's Star Wars. And I figured it was worth mentioning here, even if we don't have all the details yet. What do you know about this, Andy?
Yes. Kathleen Kennedy, who has been somewhat reviled as of late in Star Wars. A lot of Star Wars fans aren't real happy with a lot of her creative or producing decisions. But she's a legend. She, as we were talking about before the show, I mean, she was a producer on Raiders of the Lost Ark and Back to the Future. And she's been on like every classic and big movie of the last 30, 40 years. So like, she knows what she's doing, and she's delivered a lot of hits. It's just, it's a different era now. Things are modern. We have streaming, we have the internet. It's so different from the way you made movies 20, 30, 40 years ago. So it is, I mean, like I said, she's been doing this forever. A shakeup in leadership would probably not be a bad idea, but at the same time, I think Disney has decided how they're going to treat this property. And they say, Star Wars is a nostalgia property. We're not doing anything new. Everything's nostalgia. And we're going to keep doing our shows on the cheap and making it look, straight to streaming. I don't think any of that's going to change, because it's like, it's film by committee, TV show by committee now.
Yeah, people have given Kevin Feige, Marvel boss, a lot of flack over how many of their recent films haven't been certified fresh right when they come out, right? There seems to be maybe a lack of quality in more recent Marvel features. And people say, hey, he had a great run here. It's time for a change. It's time for him to go. I've talked about that here on this podcast. Kathleen Kennedy over at Lucasfilm, kind of in a similar position, although they haven't been releasing films. Like, they've definitely had some success with the shows. We've talked about how Disney Plus has galvanized the Star Wars film library in a way that is difficult to come back from. But she has not been able to get any movies out. And like, every movie they've announced at Star Wars events and then later quietly shuttered. Like, God, Andy and I have talked through 10 of these things on this podcast. I swear to God. Like, there's so many bonkers Star Wars ideas that were going to happen. Patty Jenkins from Wonder Woman was going to have a Star Wars movie. The Game of Thrones guys were going to have a Star Wars movie. None of them ever materialized. It's difficult to keep that going, I think, at some point. And you got to say, hey, Kathleen, how much longer do you really want to do this? You know what I mean? Like, take the golden parachute, go ahead and retire, slide on out to the beach, get yourself a martini, and you'll be fine. For the rest of us, I got to know, who's running Star Wars? Right? What's next? And I think there's two people at the front of this campaign. A, Dave Filoni, who was George Lucas's like the come up guy. He was like this was the guy who was like his protege. He kicked off Clone Wars on Cartoon Network that turned into like an 8-season thing that Netflix ended up buying, built a bunch of new Star Wars lore. Thrawn, I think that's a Dave Filoni creation. Like a lot of what Star Wars is now comes from Dave Filoni. The other candidate, Jon Favreau, which I would not think Jon Favreau would be into. He's mostly a director who works on unique projects and definitely is in good with Disney. Outside of The Mandalorian and Grogu, which is kind of his big thing for Star Wars, like I don't think he's as dedicated to it as maybe Filoni. And I would think if you're going to pick one, you go for the guy whose whole life has been Star Wars, right? Like my man is just king nerd. But Favreau has produced Mandalorian and Grogu, right? Like he's got some big vision there. So what do you think, Andy? Like any thoughts on where this might be headed for Star Wars fans?
I can't think of a name, and it's also like with Marvel, it's Kevin Feige, and it's like, okay, who would replace him? Like it's not like directors. It's easier to say, okay, this director would be able to slide in or something. When it comes to producers, it's a much more kind of nebulous and unknown area. I think what is interesting is that Star Wars Celebration, which is in April, I wonder if that's where they'll actually announce who the new person is, and that's why we're getting this news early, so that when that announcement it can happen at a big event like that.
You might be right. The news comes ahead of Star Wars April Celebration in Tokyo, where the future of the Star Wars franchise is expected to be unveiled. I might be a little skeptical because we've reported on a few stories that have not actually come to fruition, but there's usually something that comes out of these things that comes true. So keep it here for more. Two more stories, I'm sorry, this week. Martin Scorsese's working on something out in Hawaii, of all places, and I'm very excited to hear more about it. Andy's got the story. What do you know about this?
So he's working on developing, in his like 9th collaboration with Leonardo DiCaprio, a crime film, which also is going to star Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Emily Blunt, taking place in the 60s and 70s in Hawaii, about a mob boss. I assume this is probably played by The Rock, as he's Polynesian, who has to both protect the ancestral homeland, like he's a native and he was interested in that, but also he's a crime boss and has to kind of fight other criminal elements as well as mainland corporations in this kind of crime struggle, very similar to, it's being compared to like things like Goodfellas and The Departed, or a combination thereof. That's all we know so far. Apparently it's a hot property. Everyone's bidding for it. Netflix, Amazon, everyone's trying to get their grubby little hands on it. It's a hot property. It's very surprising. Like, I mean, The Rock has made a lot of really bad films. It's kind of fallen out of favor. But he's kind of making it turn into more serious acting lately.
Yeah, this thing reads very exciting. Currently untitled project, but the talent behind it is stacked. It's Scorsese doing a 60s, 70s tropical crime drama. What's not to love, right? One of my favorite movies from him is Wolf of Wall Street. You combine that with like the heat of something like, I don't know, the first act of Tony Montana in Florida in Scarface. I kept wanting to say Goodfellas. You got Scorsese, who's obviously done a bunch of these bangers, alongside Leonardo DiCaprio, who he's worked with for a long time. You got Johnston and Blunt coming in, who both worked together on Jungle Cruise. Apparently, they were the ones that approached Scorsese and DiCaprio about the project. They said, "Hey, we got this script that we think is white hot. You should check this out." It all seems like it's going to be amazing. It's going to be neon pink and drugs. I'd say more, but I know we're on YouTube. Like this seems like it's going to be a winner, man. I feel like I'm going to be into this, and I'm glad. Like I'm glad that The Rock is stretching out. Like obviously he's doing some work with Benny Safdie over on the Smashing Machine for A24, which we should be getting trailer for probably the next 6 months or so, right? Like he's doing big drama that way. He's getting a Scorsese project. Like good for The Rock, good for everybody. I'm into it. This sounds great. My only hope is that it gets a Blu-ray and it's not just trapped on Apple TV Plus like Killers of the Flower Moon, because that would be criminal. What do you think about this?
I'm super excited about this. I mean, this is Scorsese's bag. He's really good at these gangster films, and I think they've slowly matured. And because Goodfellas a lot of times is accused of glamorizing the mob and criminal lifestyle, and his more recent pictures like The Irishman and Killers of the Flower Moon are kind of stray away from that. Like, it focuses on the real negative side of living that kind of life. So it's interesting to see his work kind of mature that way. And that's, I mean, gosh, it's what a pitch. Like, it sells
Yeah.
itself.
I know. Like, I just like it. It's like people joke about like scripts made by AI, but like, dude, this thing is like tailor made for me to buy a ticket the day it comes out. Like, that sounds so goofy. I hope it's 3 hours and they say the F word a million times. One more story this week from the box office. Captain America's second week. I had to know, how's Captain America going to do in week 2, right? Open to like a double holiday weekend. Going to be some drop off for sure, just like all the other Marvel movies. Turns out it's doing okay. And meanwhile, the monkey's doing not so bad. What do you know about this story, Andy?
So Captain America did come out on top with 28 million, but a really pretty steep drop off, about 67%. What they're now dubbing the Marvel drop, where a lot of Marvel films have a very strong opening weekend and then just kind of crash second weekend. Sadly, it kind of said not the worst drop ever, not as bad as the Marvels, which had like a 75% drop off. So the Marvels still catching strays years later. So it's not bad. It needs to make Cap 4 needs to make about 425 million to break even. It'll probably get close to that, especially when it comes to VOD sales. So they'll probably make okay, and it just needs to not be a bomb. And I think it has crossed that. Meanwhile, Osgood Perkins, The Monkey, opened up to 14 million, the second biggest opening for Neon, behind Longlegs, which is also an Osgood Perkins feature from last year. So he's doing great work with them. That was also a $10 million film. So again, he's an advocate for small filmmaking that can make a big impact. In at number 3 is Paddington 3, Paddington in Peru, which continues to do well. And a somewhat sleeper hit, Naja 2, the Chinese animated film, which is approaching $2 billion globally, came in at number 4. So kind of a wild weekend.
It is a wild weekend, dude. Cap opens to a double holiday weekend, Valentine's/President's Day. It's a long weekend. Does great. Bit of a fall off, but not as bad as Marvel's seen in the past. Probably a good indicator. I guess you could read that as a good indicator. B, the monkey's crushing it for low budget horror, and why shouldn't it? We've talked about this in the past, dude. You make a movie for $10 million with big advertising, you're probably going to make your money back in one weekend. It's a great strategy. Like, what a great way for smaller filmmakers to get more stuff made. I know Osgood Perkins is weird. It's been a lot of fun reading the reviews on The Monkey. I think people are pretty divided on it, but I'm glad we got to check it out for the show. We checked that out, I think, just last week. You can roll back and see our old episode. As for Paddington in Peru, weird pick, dude. Like, if you had told me a few years ago that Paddington 3 was going to come out, and no, not that many people were going to see it, I would have thought you were nuts. I would have been like, I'm going to be one of the first people in line. The first 2 films are Paul King films. Paul King, the guy who made Wonka, a movie that I thought was going to be lame and turned out to be pretty good. Like, those first 2 Paddington movies are a treasure, and it's wild to see the third one come out and just not really make a splash. And as for splashes, the highest grossing animated film of all time comes out in America and nobody sees it. Crazy, dude. Like, I hope we can go see it soon. In fact, keep an eye on what we're watching coming up. You might be surprised at how soon we end up seeing it, but it's weird. It's just a weird after Valentine's weekend at the movies. You know what I mean? Like, not quite up is down, left is right, but like no big playmakers, and like the ones that I would think would do well kind of aren't. Like, I don't know. Just kind of a funny reflection.
I did want to mention that we saw The Monkey early, but for regular releases, there was a preview of Osgood Perkins' next film, which is actually coming out in this October. So the man is working, I think, called The Keeper, and I completely forget what the plot is. Maybe it's about a couple that goes on like a cabin retreat, something like that. But this was a big surprise, and we didn't get to see this preview because we saw an earlier screening of the movie. But if you're going to see The Monkey this weekend, be sure to stick around for that. But that was also some news that Osgood Perkins has yet another film coming out in 6 months, which is crazy.
Yeah, my man's on like the Wes Anderson circuit. He's doing 2 films a year. It's nuts. Why not, right? Like they seem like small productions. Like he seems like he keeps it together. Like I would imagine Neon's going to keep greenlighting him for a while. Great. Shout out to Osgood Perkins. We should talk about our first film. My God, we've covered so much news. We got to talk about our first film of the episode, and I'm looking forward to this one. This is offbeat and not an area we usually stray, but we both happen to have access to Apple TV Plus this weekend, and we figured, you know what, why not? We should check it out. Andy's gonna be taking the summary on it. Andy, please take it away.
The Gorge. So this is the latest film from director Scott Derrickson, who's done a lot of horror films. He did The Black Phone, which we reviewed on the show. He also did the first Doctor Strange. So he's been around for a while, has directed a lot of movies, some TV, and he brings us The Gorge from Apple TV Plus, which was released on Valentine's Day. It stars Miles Teller as Levi and Anya Taylor Joy as Drasa, a Lithuanian military person. Miles Teller's an American. They both get kind of conscripted or assigned to patrol the Gorge, which is a very isolated place. They don't know anything about it. They're not told anything. They're rendered unconscious to actually get there. They don't know where it is. They think it might be in the northern hemisphere, and they're briefed very little. And there's this giant gorge, and there's a tower on either side, both manned with one soldier. And as they're handed off this assignment, all they learn is that no one knows where this is. No one talks about this. It's some clandestine agreement between the Eastern and Western blocks nations. And they ask, well, who are we trying to keep out of here? And they said, oh, no, you're trying to keep what's in there in there. So it's a little bit of mystery, what's going on. Our two leads are by themselves. They don't have any like electronics, of course, no internet. They're not supposed to contact each other. They eventually kind of strike up a friendship through a fun series of signs, and they have binoculars and telescopes to look at each other. His friendships eventually, of course, turns romantic, and a little bit of a romance blooms. They plan kind of a legal visit to one another, and during one of these visits, one of them cascades down the gorge, and it becomes a rescue mission. Mystery, sci-fi, whole lot going on. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. Zach, what do you think?
So I was pleased when I asked people what they had thought of The Gorge, if they'd watched it before I checked it out, because I didn't want to watch a trailer. I figured we're going to watch it for the show. I'll just check, just kind of take people's temperature, see what they thought if they've seen it. And people said that it had a lot going on, which is weird because the trailer does not seem to have a lot going on. Like you said, you've got a gorge, a couple snipers. They start talking to each other and playing a game of telephone across the gorge. Something's down there. We don't really know. There's a lot that's not shown in the trailers for The Gorge. And tragically, normally that'd be a good thing, but I'm not sure it is. I think the gorge might be too much. I think the gorge might be overstuffed. I think the gorge might be better for a miniseries or an adaptation to a larger work, because what's here is like real full, dude. It's 2 hours in length, which is probably longer than it needs to be because we can tell you the idea in less than 30 seconds. Like, third time, your gorge, snipers, both sides, they start talking to each other. There's something down there. Like, it's not that deep of a concept, right? And it starts out pretty strong, and it gets to where it's going pretty quickly, but then it just keeps going, and it just keeps rolling. And I think it's a result of Scott Derrickson's work in horror, which is something that's not advertised a lot here. The Gorge is kind of a horror movie. It's weird. If you search for it on YouTube, you might be watching that here, us there. You may see things like the Gorge is like a video game movie, or the secretly like a zombie thing. And like, it kind of is, because the evil at the bottom of the gorge is good monster design, but feels oddly out of place for the rest of the gorge. Like the poster for the gorge is like our two characters, like their heads against each other with like this pink twilight sunset. It's like, oh, it's kind of like a romance. And then also it's like a huge action film for your dad. It's kind of too much. There's a secret organization and Sigourney Weaver's in it, who's a lot of fun. But like she's got her own motivations and they got to figure out what's going on with everybody. Surprisingly complicated for a movie with a small cast and a pretty simple idea.
Yeah, this is like 5 movies in one. Like I didn't see any the promos. I didn't see any the trailers. So I just thought this was like going to be a sniper battle or some sort of a political something or other. People from different countries. It's not that, but it is like part military procedural, part rom-com, part sci-fi, part horror, part like government spy stuff. So this is why Zach said that it feels like a mini series, or it could be minutes because there's so many plot elements, and it almost feels like this was pitched, and they're like, "Hey, we got this idea for a mini series," and somebody said, "Why don't we cut that down into a movie instead?" Because there's just so much going on, and it's too much. It's too long for the idea that it is. Like it feels overly long, but there's also so much in it where like you could have done a 6-episode series on this, which is what Apple does. They love the 6-episode series.
So we should talk about cast. First things, Miles Teller as kind of our protagonist lead, who is like not. Listen, I like
So
Miles Teller
dry.
fine.
So dry.
Listen, I like Miles Teller in Whiplash. He's great in Whiplash. But he's just playing this like kind of hardened veteran guy who sniped like 150 people around the world and like doesn't have anybody in his life and has bad dreams, and like it's just a little too generic. Like part of my work in real life, I work with veterans often, and like these guys are so much more multifaceted than what he's doing here. It's like it's just kind of closed off in a way that is not appealing. Meanwhile, Anya Taylor Joy, lightning rod in the movie, right? Like she's got dimension and she's interesting and she's got this dad character that I think they shoot in on reshoots, but like she's complicated and she's the one who kind of initiates contact with them. Like she is so much more fun and interesting for this binary relationship. You got Sigourney Weaver, who runs Dark Lake, which is this shadow kind of secret organization that ends up working with Miles Teller to get him to the Gorge, to get him involved in this. They're involved in the Gorge. We'll find out more about them later. She's fine. She's got a couple scenes in a boardroom and then a couple scenes on like a set that they built, and that's pretty much it for her. That's mostly it. You got a few extras in the movie, but like that's really it. It is very minor cast, and additionally very minor sets. Dr. Draper, when he watched this movie, had this great line that I'm very excited to share with y'all. He was like, "It's great because it's supposed to be an outdoor movie. Nearly the whole movie shot indoors. It is.
Yeah,
it's all sound stages for sure.
They spent one day outside in the forest.
I think
and everything else is on stand.
Yes, I think hilariously they probably only had one tower set, and they just filmed Miles Teller and Anya Taylor Joy on different days, doing their halves of it, and then they just cut it together in editing, and it looks like, oh, there's two different towers. Like hilariously, I'm not even sure they had both. They probably did have two tower sets, but otherwise, like very cheap, very easy to make. I think one of the clever things about this movie is the monster design, which you don't see a lot of in the trailer. Like YouTube thumbnails don't have a lot of these things. These creatures that come out of this gorge are particularly fascinating. You want to talk about them?
I didn't know whether or not we should, but the trailer does give away a whole lot of this movie. And it does show them fairly early on that there is the gorge is lined with like auto machine guns and mines and stuff, and it's like to keep, and we see these like creatures, like these humanoid things kind of try and crawl out, and they get like shot by the auto turrets and also blown up by like these hanging mines. And then as we end up descending into the gorge, we get a better look at it, and it looks like it's a mix of actually reminding me of Stranger Things, where it's some sort, and Annihilation, funny enough,
Yeah.
where it's like a blend of like half plant, half human, horrific monsters of soldiers long dead.
Yeah, I was reminded of like the fishmen in Pirates of the Caribbean 2 on like
Yeah.
Davy Jones' ship. They're like dudes, but they're also like they got horns growing out of them and stuff. Yeah, like kind of cool looking. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool stuff. Some of the effects, that's where the budget went to, is the effects, because there are some places where we do get a lot of cool like action pieces and, like you said, good character and monster design. That's where the budget's going, and it's not to the two towers and convincing us that they're outside and not in front of giant screens most of the time.
No, and it's not a subtle movie either. Like it's very, very on the nose and very straightforward. It's the kind of movie you can do your laundry to, which is why it's good for a streaming service like Apple TV Plus, right? You can watch it at home, you can take it at your pace. At 2 hours, it's long, but it is so not. It is so unobvious, right? Like Miles Teller is a veteran who's clearly suffering some post trauma. They go out and start. They're not supposed to talk to each other, and they start writing letters anyway, and shooting across the thing to make noise and get each other's attention. And the romance very quickly like develops. It is not subtle. They do not become friends first. Like it's very straightforward. When things start coming out of the gorge, it is very obvious that those are the bad guys, and we got to shoot those things. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down. And like I think it's a weakness of the movie that like there's just not a lot. intellectually stimulating like here. Like there's not a whole lot to twirl your mustache and think about when you're watching The Gorge. It's very like kind of perfect for something like a miniseries. Like it's kind of got too much going on, and if you dragged it out a little bit and maybe took more time and were a bit more patient, add a bit more, like turn up the drama, like add a little suspense, draw things out. Like I think it'd probably be a stronger project. You could do 3 or 4 episodes out of this thing, but instead it just ends up being a 2 hour movie that just feels too full, like it's just overstuffed.
Yeah, I remember at one point being like, I did the thing where I'm like, oh my God, there's a half hour left. Like I thought we were
Yeah.
about to wrap up and finish. And it's like, oh no, there's a whole other act to finish. I wanted to talk about a little bit about ATJ, Anya Taylor Joy, who, as you were saying before, it is kind of the draw to this film. She seems to be able to lift up any project she's in. And I remember George Miller saying that she's really great for action because she's a trained dancer, and so she's very good at like controlling her body and movement. So she does a really good job at like looking the part of like, the way she holds weapons and like has all the military combat gear and stuff. So like she looks the part very well. Yeah, Miles Teller is just a little bit too dry and cliche, and he's just he's the suffering veteran. He's like, I don't got much to live for. Well, I guess I'll go on this mission where no one's gonna miss me, and
Right.
he's got PTSD nightmares that he wakes up from, and
But he's like too noble. He's too noble to have alcoholism or like real problems. He's like, no, I keep it together because I'm tough. Like, yeah, like it's just kind of like Ken doll. Like he's not really doing anything particularly interesting. Taylor Joy's got to move. There's like this whole set at the end where they got like a Jeep flipped up on a wall and there's a winch going. She's all over that. It looks like something right out of Furiosa. Like it's great. Like she's doing a great job. I wish he had more to do. I think his character is just a little flat. Like that's part of the reason he's charmed by her, because she's kind of playful in a way that he isn't. And I see that. I do. But also, like, boy, it for sure feels paint by numbers. You know what I mean? The big mystery of what's going on in the Gorge is good. And there's some fun stuff down there for sure. Like Andy said, like a la Stranger Things upside down, like lots of big colors. But I don't know. Like I wish there was a bit more mystery to the Gorge than just like what's at the bottom of the Gorge, because there's certainly more film, and that mystery alone doesn't hold up a 2 hour runtime. You need more to it.
Yeah. I think I'm ready for recommendations. I don't have too much more to say.
That's what I mean. We've talked about the Gorge more than what's going on in the Gorge. So with that, Andy, would you recommend the Gorge?
I would say it's perfect for streaming. If you already have a subscription to Apple TV Plus, maybe check it out for a fun kind of casual date night or family. It's PG-13, so it's not super violent or anything like that. But there are some nice ideas. There's too much in this film. It's like 5 movies stuffed into one. We have a great performance from Anya Taylor Joy. Miles Teller continues to be underwhelming for some reason. So save it for streaming if you already have the subscription.
Yeah, same. If this had come out in theaters, we would tell you to wait till it's at home. And it is at home. Good news. And Apple TV is one of the cheapest streaming services you can get. I think it's like $6 or $7 a month. Yeah, man. If you're already subbed, go for it. Throw it on. Give it a go. There might be something in there you like. But otherwise, it's like it's a little Netflix movie of the week, Like, it's fine. It's fine. Scott Derrickson obviously has a lot more going on. He's going to be doing Black Phone 2 coming up. Black Phone 1 was a big success. We covered that on this show. We covered Doctor Strange on this show. So, like, he'll be around, obviously. But boy, it just feels like, I don't know, like a bit of a paycheck job. You know what I mean? The Gorge. Anya Taylor Joy got paid big. Miles Teller got paid big. Sigourney Weaver got paid big. Scott Derrickson, like everybody made money. Everyone's happy. The movie's fine. It's good. It's a B plus. I don't know. I don't do grades on this podcast. Anyway, we got to move on. We have to talk about something much more exciting than the Gorge. Big segment this week. We've been doing prep. We've been putting ballots together. Very excited to talk about it. Andy, what is this we're doing?
We are doing our 2025 Oscar predictions. The Oscars are this Sunday, March 2nd. And this is for, of course, the year of 2024, covering 2024, but you always call them the year that they're in. So we're going to be going through all our predictions of most of these, anything that we haven't, any category that we haven't seen, we're not going to be talking about. But I'm going to go ahead and jump into this. So starting with Best Picture, I'll list all of the nominees and then I'll say what I predict. So Anora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, The Substance, and Wicked are our nominees. And my choice, and again, this isn't my personal choice, this is me trying to predict what the Academy is going to predict, is Anora. Anora's had a lot of huge buzz. It's won a lot of the kind of smaller awards leading up, the PGA, DGA, WGA, SAG, Spirit Award, like all these things that happened in the last couple of months. It's become the front runner, and this has been an exciting Oscar season because it's shifted. First, it was, it's Conclave, no, it's The Brutalist, no, it's A Complete Unknown, no, it's Anora. It's like half of these have been the front runner at one point or another. It seems to be focusing in on Anora. It is a great film by Sean Baker. Incredible performance by Mikey Madison, which we'll talk about later. So my prediction is Anora.
My prediction is The Brutalist, for a couple of reasons. One, because I can't predict everything, Andy. We can't have the same predictions, all right? That wouldn't make for a good podcast. But two, because I think The Brutalist is genuinely special. I think it is a small budget for such grand vision. I think it does a lot of things that Hollywood likes, i.e. bringing back big old classics like The Intermission, right? And bringing up some obviously other big noms here. I feel like our Best Picture pick indicates a lot of where Andy and I seem to have split this year. I feel like he runs a little bit in the direction of Sean Baker and Anora, and I do definitely seem to be running towards Brady Corbett and The Brutalist. But man, I've just been so charmed by that film, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. And you're right, I should be picking like what I think the Academy will pick, but also a little bit, man, dude, I think The Brutalist is great. Also, a hot mention for Conclave, which I don't know is going to win, but I've seen a lot of people saying it might go the distance. We covered all of these on our podcast before. All bangers, all winners in my heart. We got to talk about actor in a leading role. Here's what I got. The exact same pick as Andy, actually. I think we both think Timothée Chalamet is winning for Complete Unknown. Other nominees are Adrian Brody for The Brutalist, Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing, Ray Fiennes for Conclave, and Sebastian Stan for The Apprentice. Listen, all great, but dude, Chalamet is just awesome. God, he did that SAG-AFTRA speech. He's like, I just want to be great. I think I can go the distance. If you're like, oh God, everybody loves him. He's a young up and comer, and he'll be the youngest one to win, which is kind of a great handoff from Adrian Brody, who was the previous youngest one to win. Imagine the split cam when you got all of them, and they're like, and the Best Picture winner is, actor in a leading role is Timothée Chalamet. Boom! Oh, Adrian Brody's big smiles. Everybody loves it. It's good. The one other one I wanted to mention before I hand back off to Andy's actor in supporting. Let's just knock this one out. Best supporting actor. We're split here. Nominees are Yura Borisov for Anora, Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain, Edward Norton for A Complete Unknown, Guy Pearce for The Brutalist, and Jeremy Strong for The Apprentice. Andy says it's Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain. I think Jeremy Strong's got it for The Apprentice. Mostly because I'm a Succession head and I love Jeremy Strong, but also, dude, Roy Cohn is so chilling in that movie. He is genuinely incredible. Andy, what do you think of these picks?
Well, Kieran Culkin has kind of won every award that has come up before. That he has been the one. I think Jeremy Strong might have won one of them. Kieran Culkin is definitely the front runner for that. I think Jeremy Strong is a strong second. That would be a huge upset, but I think the cards are definitely on Kieran Culkin's favor. And then I had Adrian Brody for The Brutalist until this last win at the SAG Awards. That really tilted me.
I know. Yeah.
A lot of what the Oscars are, it's about dictating the future of Hollywood. So you have a question like, do we hold up kind of the more traditional old style films of, a kind of longer standing veteran actor like Adrian Brody, or do we anoint the once and future king of cinema, our Lord and Savior Timothée Chalamet? And I think Chalamet has got it. He has been in 7 of the last 10 Best Picture noms. He's led 4 of them, and that would be Dune 1 and 2, Call Me by Your Name, and of course A Complete Unknown. He's a star. He's going to go on to continue to do great things. I think he definitely has, and his performance is incredible as well.
Yeah, I think he's kind of incredible. I think you're right. Like he might be the new king, or maybe not. Maybe he's still got some years to go, but he's pretty talented. Who do you got for actress?
So our nominees are Cynthia Erivo for Wicked, Carla Sofia Gascon for Emilia Perez, Mikey Madison for Anora, Demi Moore for The Substance, and Fernanda Torres for I'm Still Here. Demi Moore has it for me. She's gave such an incredible performance in that movie. And again, a lot of what the Oscars is about rewarding legacy, rewarding a career, rewarding what have you done for the movies, what have you done for us lately, kind of thing. She has an incredible 40-year career in films and lots of memorable roles. The only upset might be Mikey Madison for Anora. She's won a number of these as well, but it's been split, so it's a little up in the air. But Mikey Madison has the thing where she is very young. She's 25. This is her first big movie, and yes, she knocks it out of the park. But again, we need a legacy here. We need you to do a little bit more before we give you the award. I think so. I think Demi Moore has it. Actress in a supporting role, we have Monica Barbaro for A Complete Unknown, Ariana Grande for Wicked, Felicity Jones for The Brutalist, Isabella Rossellini for Conclave, and Zoe Saldana for Emilia Perez. I think Saldana is getting this despite the controversy. Again, a very storied career. Ariana Grande is possibly would be a dark horse. She's kind of second place.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be Saldana. I really like Ariana Grande in Wicked. I think she's incredible, but Saldana has won like every major award leading up to this. Like if she doesn't get it, it's practically an upset at this point. It's crazy that Demi Moore is on the fence, dude. Like we rewatched Substance not long ago. My God, that movie's great, dude. I think it's like role of a lifetime stuff for her, and I understand how many great roles she's had, but like it is just something so special she's doing in that movie. It's like it feels too perfect. It's like it was made in a test tube, which like really is kind of what the Substance is all about. I think she's amazing in that role. Anyway, I don't have enough good things to say about it. We've definitely covered The Substance on the pod before. If you want to go check out our review, you can. Also, we covered it just last week in our recently watched segment. I think I put out a Hellraiser video. It's got our Substance review on the end of it. So if you want to check that out, check the channel. Let's talk about Best Animated Feature. 5 nominees this year, like always. Flow, Inside Out 2, Memoir of a Snail, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, and The Wild Robot. We've seen all of these but Memoir of a Snail. Andy says it's Flow, which we're actually just about to talk about. So I'm glad this is a good primer for the pump to talk about what we're going to talk about with Flow here. Having seen most of these, I think it's a big claim to say Flow's the winner. For me, I think it's Wild Robot by a nose. They're both really special. They both do something unique that I think they actually have a lot of similarities. But Robot is just something totally different in a way that I didn't expect. I didn't expect to be charmed by it. Like Flow, I kind of went in thinking, yeah, this is supposed to be something special. It's nominated for Academy Award. Wild Robot felt scrappy. I was like, well, here's DreamWorks swing at whatever. Like what? Disney put out Inside Out 2, and DreamWorks is like, Wild Robot. The best we got. But it's actually really special, and I'm really glad it's on here. So that's my favorite. What do you got, Andy?
So the Flow was also nominated for Best International Feature. It's out of Lithuania. And actually I had the Wild Robot before seeing Flow. It would be it's a little bit smaller film. So it would be a little bit of an upset, but those are definitely the top 2 contenders. Dropping through, I'm going to try and go through these a little bit faster now. Cinematography, we have The Brutalist, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, Maria, and Nosferatu. I'm leaning towards The Brutalist.
Yeah, I think it's The Brutalist as well. Again, I know it's a cheap project, but between the location scouting and like just how they managed to place things in frame, incredible, dude. Like not only for the architecture and what you see, but also like just the general emotion of Laszlo's journey, like as an immigrant to America and experiencing like these wildly differing feelings from a world that so many Americans now hold up as great. The 50s, right? Everything was good. That was when we had it all figured out. Like, turns out maybe not so. And I think a lot of that comes through in the visuals for The Brutalist. Costume design, real quick one here. I think it's Wicked. Nominees are Complete Unknown, Conclave, Gladiator 2, and Nosferatu. Andy lands in the same place. It's an easy Wicked pick, right? And I don't mean to say that the Oscars are all about marketing and making money, but like you got to get them up there to accept an award, a couple awards, right? Give them like makeup and hairstyling or costume design, maybe. Like, I don't know. I just feel like it's got it. Complete Unknown is very nostalgic, but like it's more about the performances, right, than it is about the visuals. But Wicked is a very visual film, and that starts with those costumes. That comes from that Broadway play. I don't know. I think it's got it.
Directing, we have Sean Baker for Anora, Brady Corbet, The Brutalist, James Mangold for A Complete Unknown, Jacques Audiard for Emilia Perez, and Coralie Farja for The Substance. My hot money is on Sean Baker for Anora. Again, that movie's just kind of gathered a lot of steam. It's slated to win, Best Picture, Best Director, and some others. So that's my pick. And Zach, you had Brady Corbet for The Brutalist.
I did. You'll notice Andy and I, although we differ in who we think might take this, we are similar in that we fundamentally believe if you win Best Picture, you're probably winning Best Director. Those kind of go hand in hand. Not always, but at least in this case, they certainly do. Like our Best Directors match our Best Picture picks. So we'll see. Editing, same. Andy for Anora, Zach for The Brutalist. I told you it's a big split this year. We're going down two lanes, I think, and we'll line up in some of the other ones. Other nominees include Conclave, Emilia Perez, and Wicked. I would have said Emilia Perez after we saw it because I remember being really charmed by the editing, actually. The way that movie uses light and shadow is actually really compelling in a lot of those more complicated dance numbers. But boy, I have seen so much Emilia Perez slander. Now I'm not sure of anything anymore. I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't know if the editing really was that awesome. Maybe I just kind of felt that way. I don't know.
So one of the reasons that I chose Anora for film editing is that Sean Baker not only directs, but he edits his own film. So I feel like, if things go Anora's way and he wins like directing, Best Picture, I think editing would also be in that group. International feature, we have I'm Still Here, The Girl with the Needle, Emilia Perez, The Seed of the Sacred Fig, and Flow. I think this is the one place that Emilia Perez is probably, if it gets anything, it's going to get this one. They're going to give it something, but like I said, it's definitely probably not getting a lot of other awards. And Zach, you had I'm Still Here.
Shameless Hail Mary pick. I have not seen I'm Still Here. How dare I vote for a movie I haven't seen? I'm sure people in the Academy don't really do that. No, we've seen Emilia Perez, we've seen Flo. I've heard about these other ones, but boy, I just keep hearing about I'm Still Here. It's probably the one I'm most looking forward to seeing on this list that I haven't seen, and in that way, I don't just want to pick Emilia Perez because Andy already picked it. I thought, well, what else? What else do I think might actually go the distance here? And I just feel like the buzz is calling to me, and it makes me think I'm Still Here's it. Makeup and hairstyling. Andy thinks it's Substance. I think it's going to go to Wicked. Other nominees include A Different Man, Emilia Perez, and Nosferatu. Here's the thing: Different Man has some incredible makeup, but a lot of it comes down to this mask that Sebastian Stan wears that's already prefabbed. It's just a prefab mask. And then some of the transformation stuff is good. But other than that, I don't think there's too much more going on with that. Adam Pearson's a come as he is. So I'm like, well, the makeup and hairstyling is good, but I don't know. Yeah, Emilia Perez, Nosferatu, I'd put it in a similar space. Nosferatu's great, but it doesn't have, I don't think it's got the flash of The Substance, and certainly not the flash of Wicked. It's close. It's real close. It's probably the runner-up on here if neither of these gets it, but I think it's going to go to one of these two.
All right. I'm going to combine these next two. Original score, The Brutalist, Conclave, Emilia Perez, Wicked, The Wild Robot. Zach and I both think it's going to be The Brutalist. Incredible score by, I can't remember his name. It's Daniel something. Of course, I'm blanking now.
I should know it. I listened to it on Spotify a few times.
It's one of the memorable themes of the year with it's like ba-da-dum bum, and that opens the thing, and it's weird. It's got a lot of this modern techniques through it as well. Really great stuff. I'm not sure what else would be in the running. Original song, we have El Mal from Emilia Perez, The Journey, The 6888, Like a Bird from Sing Sing, Mi Camino also from Emilia Perez, and Never Too Late, Elton John. I don't know any of these songs except the ones from Emilia Perez, and it has two in here, so I think it's probably going to walk away with at least one of those.
Yeah, same. As for best score, everybody get out of Daniel Bloomberg's way. It's The Brutalist, dude. That score kicks
Daniel Bloomberg,
so much ass. Yes, I've listened to it since. I'm looking forward to getting the 4K. That opening sequence is one of the most incredible sequences I've seen in the theater this year. When that theme kicks in, it is so inspiring. Hard cut to a bus flying down an American road in the 50s with this driving theme. It's incredible, dude. Everybody get out of The Brutalist way. If The Brutalist doesn't win, it's a snub, I swear to God. All right, production design. I think it's The Brutalist. I kind of put this next to cinematography, same thing. I just cannot get over the look of this film. The Brutalist has to align with, wait, hold on a second. Andy picked Brutalist. I said Conclave. I'm defending Andy's answer. Brutalist sucks. I think Conclave's got it by a nose. Edward Berger's film is genuinely gorgeous. And like I do think while it's got a lot of noms here, I don't know if it's going to be big and bold enough to sweep anything, but I do think it's got some angle in production design because it looks like they shot that film in the Vatican and they didn't. It's amazing. It is an amazing illusion of how good that movie looks considering what they had to work with. It's nuts. Other nominees include Dune Part 2, Nosferatu, and Wicked. Andy, please tell people why The Brutalist is probably going to win production design.
I mean, it was a very small film, but just managed to create these kind of gargantuan vistas of, it was filmed in VistaVision, which is where they turn the 35 millimeter upwards. And so you get this very tall feature. And yeah, you have these big views of like the crane and the big hill where they're building the thing. When they go to the quarry in Italy, it looks incredible. The big library scene that kicks off the whole thing is really impressive. Moving on to Best Sound, we have A Complete Unknown, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, Wicked, and The Wild Robot. I chose Dune Part 2. This used to be two categories. It used to have sound mixing and sound editing, and they just combined it into one. And so for that, on a technical side, I think Dune Part 2 is very good. And you chose A Complete Unknown.
Yeah, I think it's like something like 40 live to tape tracks or something in that movie. Like, it's nuts. It has way more music than a typical biopic. And it just seems like, considering how much of that is Chalamet playing guitar, Monica Barbaro belting, like, I don't know. I just feel like the Academy is going to be charmed. And if it's not from A Complete Unknown, it might actually be Wicked. Wicked might end up scooping a sound nom here just because it's like singing on set, Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo. It's incredible. Dune Part 2's got to get something, though. And I agree. Like, if you're going to give it something, please give it a sound. Or better yet, visual effects. Nominees include Alien Romulus, Better Man, Dune Part 2, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and Wicked. Andy says it's Dune Part 2. Great pick. I think it might be Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And I know that's a far cry because it doesn't have like any other noms, but they released
Hail Mary.
They released that whole version on the Blu-ray where it's like no effects and you can watch the whole movie with all the blue screen and everything. It's like they're showing their work. Like, look how much work we put into making this illusion work. And that's really impressive. Not to mention, I remember going to the theater and thinking, I'm not big on these ape movies. This is not going to be that cool. I was genuinely transported by how good that movie looks. Like, it's crazy. It's a real illusion. And it can't be Better Man because Better Man has one ape. Like, in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes has lots of apes. So it can't. I know Better Man has more than one ape, but like, it's fine.
Writing, adapted screenplay, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Emilia Perez, Nickel Boys, and Sing Sing. This is where I'm going a little bit dark horse here. I'm going for Nickel Boys, which we haven't reviewed on the show, and this is the only nominee it's getting. A lot of people are saying that's criminal. It should have gotten, but it also got Best Picture. A lot of people saying it should have been nominated for a lot more things, and so this might be the one place where it kind of gets thrown a bone. And Zach, you chose Conclave for this.
Yeah, mostly because Conclave was the one script out of all of these I think I was the most charmed by. Admittedly, have not seen Nickel Boys and Sing Sing. Easy play for me to say. I've only seen 3 of these, and this one's my favorite, but I've only seen 3 of these, and that one's my favorite. One more, writing for original screenplay. Nominees are Anora, The Brutalist, A Real Pain, September 5th, and The Substance. Annie thinks it's Real Pain. I think it's going to be Substance. I've seen some screenshots of the Substance screenplay. It's pretty wacky. They had font treatments and like weird things going on in there. And I don't know if that's respected in the Academy. It probably isn't, but I respect it. And I think that's worth putting on there. I think Substance is special. But also Real Pain is like one of the best things about it is its writing. So like great pick in here.
Yeah, these are both really strong. I would love to see Coralie Farjah win for writing. I think just the way the awards have gone so far, it's probably leaning to A Real Pain, which would be Jesse Eisenberg winning this. And that wraps up our predictions for 2025. Again, they are this Sunday. They start about 7 p.m. Central, and I hear that Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo are going to open with a Wicked medley of some sort. So if you're a Wicked head, tune in for that. Zach, definitely. Any final thoughts?
I think 2024 was kind of an incredible year at the movies. Like, I know we talked about this in our wrap up at the end of last year, but there was so much good cinema out, dude. Like, I think we have gotten well past like our pandemic era where production had really slowed and stopped and we were shooting small things. A lot of writers got to work. A lot of people hit the pen. A lot of people were like, hey, let's put together something really special, you know? And I think locking up a lot of creatives through a pandemic and then following that, like writers' strikes, actors' strikes, fires, like there's been a lot going on over in Hollywood. I think out of all of that has come some genuinely special work. And like so much of this is difficult to pick just because there's so much talent here. Like, so I think we got great picks. I have a hard time arguing with a lot of Andy's for sure. Like, dude, my man's got a great list. But who knows? Like, Conclave might be the sweep. I might have this completely wrong. You know, like we might see Emilia Perez win all 13 noms. I have no idea. Stay tuned. Next week we'll cover the whole thing. Right. The best way to do that. Stay tuned. Just subscribe to the podcast wherever. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave a comment. All that stuff. Anyway, we should move on. One more. Well, hold on, Andy. Any other thoughts from this before I move on to Flow?
I mean, I agree that it's been an incredible year for film. Not just the things that have been nominated, but just a lot of other things. If you look at our top 10, things like Love Lies Bleeding or Long Legs, or lots of other things that came out and really charmed us. So great year for film.
Yeah, incredible. And with that, we should move on to the final film of the episode. I'm really looking forward to talking about this one. This is unique and it's special. So I'm going to be taking a summary on this. Please excuse any clumsy delivery. The movie is Flow. So, Flow is the story of a young black cat who is uniquely alone in the world, a world that is surprisingly lonely. When one day, out in the woods in a small house where the cat lives, some water starts rising. It starts coming out of the woods. A bunch of animals come charging through, and suddenly water's coming up. Before you know it, the whole place is flooded. Over flooded, in fact. And the cat's perched on a tree and then runs up to a statue. Before you know it, there's nowhere to go. The water's rising. It's almost over. And then a boat comes passing through with a small animal on it. Not quite a cat, but something like it. And before you know it, the cat hops on, and this animal and this cat start moving along this kind of river that's developed where this flood used to be. And then after that, more animals jump in, and they kind of find a bit of a family and maybe find a bit of a solution to this flood problem that none of these animals could possibly understand. This is the beginning of Flow, which is an 85-minute foreign film. I think it's out of Latvia from director Gints Zilbalodis? I'm so sorry.
Zilbalodis.
Anyway, I'm saying this complimentary. It's a tremendous film, and I'm very much looking forward to talking about it. Flow is a film about being in the present. It is a film with no language. There is no spoken cast. None of these animals speak. This is not a Disney joint. It is a low-budget indie animated feature that is using a combination of animation tricks and emotional storytelling to present to you a very simple story, like with very simple animation and really no vocals at all, but to give you something that is uniquely in the position of an animal, which is present tense at all times. Like without language, we cannot talk about our worries. We cannot express our fears. We cannot express elation, but we can share emotion with one another, which is something these animals do so well. This cat is adorable. All of these animals are adorable, and they manage to weave this unique story in a place without people, that is so hauntingly without the presence of individuals, but somehow manages to have like an emotion that you, the audience, can connect to. It's uniquely special, and I feel like I've talked about it in the abstract. We got to talk about this movie for what it is. Andy, what did you think of Flow?
So I was really impressed by this, and I wasn't sure what to think because I didn't know anything about it. I was sure not to watch any trailers, but I just knew that it had a lot of buzz. Like I said, it was nominated for both Best International Feature and Best Animated Feature, so I figured it must have something to it. And it's very adult. There's a lot of like mature themes, and not mature as in like, violence and gore, but just in more philosophical things. There's a number of things in the film that I don't actually really know what they represent, and it's something that I've had to like sit and think with to say like, what is this trying to say? What does this mean? And that's what I mean by more adult. But it's a lot of fun because it's like an animal feature that we got to work together to survive, and there's little conflicts that go away. But there's also some stuff that's like, it's kind of scary because like this water is rising and it just will not stop. Every time you think the everyone is safe, the water just keeps going up, and they have to keep finding safety. There's also there's some dark things in here, and that was shocked a little bit at a couple parts, things that happened that I didn't really expect, didn't think the movie would go there. Um, and it's about a lot of things. It's about, teamwork. It's a bit of a family, the power of friendship. But it's also about kindness. But it's also the cost of that working together is how we survive, but also, that might be a price to pay for helping others out. And then sometimes you're not always rewarded for that. But I was really impressed by it. I was really hooked on it the whole time, even though there's no dialogue at all. Everything is all on screen. That you have to look at the way the creatures react and their facial expressions and all those sorts of things. So I was really impressed by it.
Yeah, it's a film that really has to nail the presentation because without any spoken dialogue, it is very easy for an audience to get bored, right? So you have to be doing something that's particularly engaging for most of that 85-minute runtime. And outside of action, of which there is plenty in Flow, this little cat has a lot to deal with. There's a lot of moments of like pensive emotion when you sit quietly with genuinely gorgeous visuals, which are accomplished by a number of things. Number one, cheap animation. They use the combination of cell shading and like simple colors to make the animation look pretty seamless. You can kind of see the edges of some shading, but not too much. Number two, great reflections. The reflections of the light off the water in this movie are fantastic. And number three, the lighting. The lighting is nuts. Like the incredible sunsets, big fog, big sunrise, moonlight, stars, like all of this comes together to give you something that's like really visually engaging. So you're locked in with your eyes, right? But if your ears aren't satisfying you, what's next? And that's the emotion. These are the things you're sitting quietly with. Like Andy said, it is uniquely adult. I don't think it has to be, but I do wonder if kids would be a little bored. Maybe not, honestly. Like it's quite a cavalcade of characters we end up meeting on this little journey. And they all have such funny problems. Like it is a world full of anxiety and Flow because the water is just continuing to rise and there's seemingly no answer and no solution and nothing we can do to stop it. And you might have a character like this cat here who is just trying to do their best to get by and maybe being playful when they can versus like this lemur kind of monkey character that's in here who has these little possessions that he likes to grab, little tinkerings and shiny things, a little mirror, like a key that he found somewhere. He's got it in a basket, and like it's such a meaningless little pile of junk, but it means something to the monkey. You know what I mean? So when something gets broken, you feel this like really heartbreaking feeling of like, oh, dude, that sucks. Like it doesn't. And all of this, I should say, is so brilliantly put together because the camera in Flow, it is an animated feature. The camera is handheld, and it's brilliant. Because the only person who could be holding a camera is a person, and it makes it feel grounded and real. And in a movie without any people, playing a handheld camera that's following a cat around like low to the ground, like gives you, the audience member, this really, really unique, genuine peek into the world. Like it feels like not quite that you're there, but that you are so explicitly following this cat and only the cat to kind of keep up with him and his safety and what's going on, their safety and what's going on with them, and not about the world, which is something you would have so many questions about. But like our cat, we don't know why the water's rising. Like we don't really have an answer to fix the water rising. All we can do is keep moving and be present. It's like a movie for people who have crazy anxiety, right? To remind you to like relax and it's all going to be okay. I'm guessing that's why Bill Hader said it's his favorite movie, because I know he's an anxiety head. So I don't know.
Oh man, I've lost my train of thought.
Yeah, it's all right.
I was there. There are no humans in this. It's important to say there are, of course, signs of them. Like our cat lives in someone's kind of broken down house, and there's all these like cat shrines around, and we see monuments, we see cities and towers and empty boats that have been crashed. So we see that humans have been around at some point, but are all now gone, possibly extinct, possibly somewhere else, transported to a different plane of existence. Who knows? We don't really know. And again, that's part of the charm, is there are mysteries and hints, but that's not the point of the film. We're not here to get answers about like what happened or how it happened. We just know there are no humans. I felt a little bit of a climate change parallel, which reminded me of The Wild Robot, because it has a little bit of that too, where entire cities are underwater and things like that. So there's just a lot of mature themes going on, and I think that's what really kind of held my attention.
Yeah, very pro environmental for sure. And I think that I don't know. I think it's a really clever exercise. Looking at the filmography, it looks like our director has done a few other films like this, but these other films seem to like animated features like this, kind of like short, quiet, minimalist. But few of them seem to have this kind of I don't know that this kind of lightning rod of a theme running through it, and that there's really no opportunity for intervention in the world of flow. It fits the title actually, along with the theme of our water kind of going through. Like there are no human characters to ask why is the water rising. There is nobody to save this cat. We don't even know whose cat this is. Yeah, we get a little bit of an idea of the house the cat lives in, this kind of bed that it curls up on, but like it's very obviously alone. There isn't anybody to help, and there's these haunting shots of like human statues. Sometimes there's this great shot of the boat going past this like hand reaching out, like almost like it's reaching out to pet the cat, but it's just like a statue. And it leaves you with these questions, but ultimately like it also reminds you of the value of conviction, like as a viewer, to remind you that like, hey, we have the ability in the real world to make decisions and talk to people and sort our problems out. But the characters in Flow don't. They don't get that. Like all they can do is just go with what comes next, just to be open to what's happening and just try to bring your best self. And maybe in times of crisis, when things get stressful and some of these animals start to kind of fight on the boat, maybe remind yourself that like you can still be a good being. You can still do the right thing when things are tough. Like it's got moral lessons, it's complicated, like it's visual, it's got good music. Flow is like a really great watch, man. And I get why it's nominated here. Like I get why it's nominated for the Oscars, Best Animated Feature. But Andy, I gotta know, you think this might be the winner, right? You think this might take it. What is it about this, as opposed to like, I don't know, Inside Out 2 or Wallace and Gromit or The Wild Robot? Like, what is it about Flow that you think has got the sauce?
So the Wild Robot is just a little bit. It's aimed at a little bit younger audiences, and I think the themes in Flow are so mature and so complex that kind of catapulted it. Again, it's like The Brutalist is, about the facade of the immigrant journey and the American dream, and it's like this big, treatise on the American way of life. It's like it's going for these big ideas, and that's what I think Flow is doing as well. It's really swinging for the fences, and something like The Wild Robot, which I think is excellently made. It's a little bit smaller. It's a little bit, it's aimed at younger audiences, where I think this is for all audiences, and it's surprisingly very adult.
Yeah, and I mean you're absolutely right with all audiences. Again, no subtitles, all language, no cast. Like you don't have to go looking for like Flow in English to watch it in your country or whatever language. Like it is available everywhere. It doesn't need it. Like all of its storytelling is uniquely visual, and like that makes it really special. Also, cannot praise the 85-minute runtime enough. My God, if only more films dared to dream in 85 minutes like Flow does. Imagine the world we'd live in. But it's a tremendous watch. I'm really glad we checked it out. I know it's on HBO right now if you want to check it out in the States. Andy, I gotta know, would you recommend Flow?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely one of the surprises of this year and last year. It's has very interesting and mature themes. It's beautifully made. There's some really stunning scenes of the animation. It's very anxiety inducing. It asks us a lot of questions and also doesn't provide us with easy answers. Really makes you think. Appropriate for all ages. So highly recommend.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Flow rocks. Would recommend if you are an animal lover, you're gonna like Flow. If you're an animation lover, you're gonna like Flow. If you have HBO, throw it on, baby. It's 85 minutes. It's bad. Come on, it's barely longer than an episode of television nowadays. Like absolutely worth your time. Might just win Best Animated Feature at the Oscars. Big upset for Disney. Can't wait. Can't wait to see. Boy, and that's the episode. Episode 283 off script, done and dusted. Andy, what are we watching next week?
So we are only going to be watching one movie because it's the 2025 Oscars will be the other complete second half of the show. But we're going to be taking a look at Ne Zha 2, the Chinese animated film, which is blowing the box office up. I think it's at like 1.9 billion. So it's about to cross the 2 billion mark, which is crazy for a film that's basically only come out in China. It hasn't had a huge international rollout. I read somewhere that it's out in something like 80,000 theaters in China, which is insane because by comparison, a big movie in America will at most have like 3,500 to 4,500 theaters at most, and that's like a big Marvel film would have. So to have like 20 times that is just nuts. Some other things, no FYI releases, but upcoming, we'll be taking a look at Mickey 17 on March 7th, Novocaine, and Opus also, which open on March 15th. So those are some things coming up, but the 2025 Oscars and Naja 2 for next week.
Very excited for next week on the pod. Looking forward to the Oscars. Also, yeah, I got to know what this Neja 2 is about. Could be heat. Who knows? It might be the best thing ever. If anything, I know Disney's watching that movie and trying to figure out what's working here in foreign markets. How can we get a little bit of this sauce over in China? If you enjoyed the episode today, episode 283 of Off Script, or any other episode we've done, best way to keep up the show, just subscribe on your favorite platform. If you're an audio listener, Spotify, Google Play, iTunes, iHeartMedia, we're over there. You can check us out. You can leave a rating and review. If you're on YouTube, love the YouTube audience. Big things happening with you guys over there. Thanks for checking us out. You can subscribe somewhere around this video. I'm sure there's a place where you can click that. You can like, comment, rate, review. Every single engagement helps the channel, I swear, in more ways than you know. Anything you guys can do for us, we appreciate it more than you know. So that's YouTube. Let's see. We're on social media. All the usual social media places. Facebook, Instagram. We're on TikTok. I think we're definitely hanging out on Twitter. You can check us out over there. You can check out our website, offscriptfilmreview.com, for more. And you can email us direct correspondence, mail@offscriptfilmreview.com. Email, just like everybody used to do, right? Back in the day before comment sections and God knows what. Anyway, I got to wrap this up. It's been quite the episode. From all of us at Offscript, the home of bold cinema, I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Thanks for watching.